The Bigger Picture on BFM 89.9, the business station.
Good afternoon, it's The Bigger Picture and I'm your Selena. Edward James Olmos first made his turn acting in the stage play Zoot Suit and immediately afterwards in the film version of the play. He quickly became one of Hollywood's most sought-after Latino actors. With a supporting role in Miami Vice, Olmos was very quickly in high demand. He stars in the critically acclaimed TV series juggernaut Battlestar Galactica. Now, Edward joins us this afternoon with his equally talented son, Michael D. Olmos, who made his directorial debut with Splinter. The film created a realistic storyline of gang life and police corruption in Los Angeles. Together, his father and son team are here to share with us their lives and experiences in Hollywood amidst learning and advice about those aspiring to reach the heights of Hollywood dreams and standards. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
It's an honor and a privilege.
How has Malaysia treated you so far?
Fantastic.
That's not enough. You have to be a little bit more in detail.
It's great. I mean, it's a beautiful country. KL is fantastic. It's interesting. We feel right at home here. Part of it is that one of the obvious reasons is that there's a lot of American brands everywhere you look, which is kind of strange, but. It's great. So it feels alive and energetic, and there's a lot of growth here.
Edward, everyone knows you here, you know.
Oh.
You're famous.
Thank you.
Yeah. No paparazzis, though.
I'm very grateful. I mean, it's amazing to go someplace where you actually can walk along and everything's okay. You know, it's been an extraordinary experience. To say the least, an eye-opening experience in the beauty and the cultural dynamic of Malaysia.
What brings the both of you here?
Well, actually, a friend of ours, Nixon Fong from Egg Story Studios, brings us here. We were introduced to Nixon 6 months ago by a mutual friend and producer, and who said, you guys have like taste and you should meet, and I think you get along really well. And he pitched a project to us called Chop Chops. Mm-hmm. And immediately we were blown away by it. It's an animated project created by Malaysian artists. And, just out of organically, we knew that once we saw this, we had to come to Malaysia and meet all the people involved.
Right. And this is in collaboration with the Help Education Group.
Correct.
And your company called Fusing.
Fusing, yes.
Okay. Go a little bit more in detail about that project. Let's find out a little bit more about it, Edward. You grew up wanting to be a baseball champion, and you subsequently became a rock and roll star. Now, how did you go into acting in the end?
I think we have to go back to the beginning. I started off to playing baseball, not to become a baseball
okay.
giant or whatever. I just happened to be, we did grow a lot in the game, learned how to play it really well. And coming from the humble beginnings that we came from, we played extensively on a long period of time, 7 days a week for about 8 years, 9 years. And up until the age of 14, I played every day, 7 days a week. There was one day that we didn't play the game. And with that, my discipline, my perseverance, my determination, my patience levels grew. And I got into dancing. My father was a wonderful dancer. Started when I was about 9 or 10 to show us how to dance. And he would show us by way of just liking music. He'd put music on. We'd help clean the house and do stuff. And music was always playing. And we danced swing, jitterbug, mambo, cha-cha-cha, salsa. And it was a wonderful growth process. And in that, I got to learn a lot about music in respects of loving music. And of course, the year was now about 1954. 55 and rock and roll hit, and I started listening to rock and roll music, and I just fell in love with it. And so in 1960, 14 years old, I had been dancing for about 3 or 4 years, just moving around to music, and then I started to really understand rock music and listening to it, and so I transferred all my energies into music and singing and dancing, and I couldn't sing, and I still can't. But I can dance.
You can dance.
I can dance well. I move well. And we started to perform. Performances started to become the way we move forward. And with that, when I got out of high school, after 64, I had been working on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood, singing and dancing for 7 nights a week again, and putting myself through school at the same time. And so for 8 years, we worked as a singer, the same way I played baseball. And we became very strong in it. We became, when you love to do something and you do it when you don't feel like doing it, that really makes you become all that you can be. And that goes for anybody that's listening to us. I mean, it's all you can ask of yourself is just to be the best that you can be at whatever it is that you're trying to do. And so I did that. And so that turned from baseball, and I got to be very good at baseball. I got to be very good at performing and music. And then at the first year of college, I was 17 years old, I started performing in theater, and carried the music, theater, into my elder states. In 1978, I did a major piece of work that encompassed my dancing, that encompassed my singing, and encompassed my dramatic and comedic energies, everything. It was very demanding role in zoot suit to play. And it became a shot heard around the world. And from that, I then started to television and motion picture, and then went on to do Blade Runner and Miami Vice, and the things that I'm most known for.
Was it difficult making your way through Hollywood as a Latino American?
Very, very difficult. The United States of America is very Eurocentric, as much as we have diversity, because we have probably one of the most diverse cultures in the world, which is a mixture of every possible culture. In 1984, just to give you an example, in 1984, when the Los Angeles area played host to the the Olympics came to the United States in the summer of 1984.
Yeah, and Lionel Richie performed in that one.
Oh yeah, he sure did. And when they got there, 147 nations came, speaking 115 languages. When they got there, they found all 147 nations already represented by LA Los Angelinos, and all 115 languages were already spoken there. And that place in New York are probably the two most diverse cultural dynamics of the country. But with all this kind of incredible dynamic of culture and the incredible contributions of people of color, it still holds a very, very Eurocentric feel in its sense of who and what and how we got to be the United States. And it's very interesting how that works, and it's been very discriminatory and prejudicial, and it's caused a lot of problems. So, yeah.
Is it still the same?
Oh yeah, and it's gotten worse.
Oh boy.
Because now it's educated. Before it was just like a fact that there was the people who didn't really know people who, came in different colors, and you should be respectful for the fact that, it wasn't for the Asian influence in the Western Hemisphere, there would have been no indigenous people in the, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And then thousands of years before the European came across. And then, of course, when the European came across 500 years ago, it became a situation that became infused with different cultural dynamics. And for some reason, the European kind of forgot that this place was, there was a lot of Asian indigenous people living in the Western Hemisphere long before they came across. And so up until about this century, 21st century, we've really gotten to the point of having to deal with the dynamic in a big way. Before, they were just discriminatory. They were just flat out. There was no, women couldn't vote. People of color, like African Americans, could not vote. They didn't get their voting rights well into the 20th century. Same with women. And so it was really kind of, it was kind of uneducated and kind of passed on behavior from generation to generation. And now it's become educated. People are educated and they're still making choices like that. That's much more dangerous.
Michael, let's take a look at what you've been doing now. Your dad started off on playing baseball. Now you found your love, storytelling, at a very, very young age. Who was your biggest influence?
Marvel Comics.
I was hoping you'd say your dad.
No, he shaped it and honed it. But I was a geek, growing up.
Were you really?
Yeah.
You look nothing like it.
I know. I'm a closet geek. Look more like a jock, I guess. But no, I loved reading. And I loved comic books, which were. I loved television. That was probably too much, but comic books were pretty much static. Or storyboards, right? And I just love reading comic books. I love drawing. I started drawing. I became an art major before I was a film major. But I really didn't know. It wasn't about storytelling for me at that point. It was just about absorbing material. And as I grew up, I started to explore how to tell stories. And he was very instrumental in that.
Of course. Yeah. What was it like growing up with a father who was so famous in Hollywood?
Well, it wasn't famous all the time.
Oh, that's an understatement.
No, I mean, that happened. But when it happened, it was quite interesting.
How interesting was it?
It was just mind-blowing, actually. I remember in Miami when he was doing Miami Vice, and the first time we were driving where someone almost ran off the road because they spotted him. And it was like a car full of kids. So it was really dangerous on the freeway. And we were like, what? And so it just changed everything. Your private life became very public. So, but it's a privilege to do what we do, and it's part of it. So you learn to accept it and embrace it, and still tell stories.
Has anyone told you you do resemble a little bit of Philip Michael Thomas?
Really? No. You're the first.
Yeah, well, let me be the first one.
I don't have his eyes. I'm not as smooth as he is.
Oh, well, you can always work on it. Now, your background seems to skew towards directing. Tell us about your journey.
Well, yeah, I think it's I guess everyone's journey is different when it comes to that. Mine, I didn't start out wanting to direct. I actually started out wanting to act because I thought, hey, that's easy, It's easy. My dad does it. He shows up to set, and everyone pampers him, and you go to set. And I tried it and discovered that it was incredibly hard, and I was not very good at it. And I didn't have the discipline I guess for that. That wasn't my discipline, and I went back to what I knew, which was telling stories. I wanted to direct, and I thought that was easy. I learned the hard way that that's also its own craft. And at some point, I told my dad I was going to go to film school for directing. He said, no, go to film school for writing, because anyone can direct, but to be a great director, you need to know how to write, to tell stories. So I went into directing through writing, and by his example, he always said, well, produce your own work, create your own work, and got into producing.
Okay.